Hi and welcome to this 2000 class training session on modes of sailing. So today we're going to talk about the three modes of sailing that we can use when sailing downwind in an asymmetric dinghy. The aim of sailing downwind is to sail the shortest and most effective route to the leeward mark. And it's a balance between the course in which you sail and the speed in which you travel. And that's what we're going to take a look at in this 5 to 10 minute presentation. Okay, and there are three modes that we're interested in. Soak it mode, intermediate and send it. And I've put some wind speed values on that I'll pop back and chat about at the end. So the three modes, as I say, are soak it, intermediate and send it. And here in this picture we've got three 2000s or three dinghies. We've got a blue one, a red one and a yellow one. And each of those boats are in one of the three modes. And we're going to look at firstly the blue boat, which is in soak it mode. And this is something that we'd do in winds of 10 knots or below. And you'll notice that the boat is pointing from number 1 buoy to number 2 buoy, and it's pointing the closest or the lowest of all three boats there. And this is exactly what we want to be doing when the wind is light. It's not effective to sail further distance by going all the way out here and turning back in. What we want to do is sail the shortest possible route to the leeward mark. Well, how do we do that? Well, the crew is going to be sat to leeward by the leeward shroud, and the helm is going to be opposite, perhaps by the windward shroud. And it's all about communication between the helm and the crew. So the crew calls the pressure in the kite sheet. So when the crew has got good pressure, they say to the helm, good pressure. If the pressure goes in the spinnaker, they're going to say no pressure. So good pressure and no pressure. What the helm's going to do is use that information to steer the boat effectively downwind. The rule, or the number one rule, is to keep the spinnaker filled at all times. And with the communication between both the helm and the crew, this is easily achieved with this communication of pressure and no pressure. So when the pressure is good, the helm tries to steer the boat lower and lower and lower, getting closer towards that leeward mark. Doing so as I've just indicated on the boat there. If the pressure goes, the crew's going to say no pressure, and the helm's going to steer the boat back up towards the wind in order to keep the kite filled. And this is a constant process that we might do 10, 20, 30 times down the run to the leeward mark. Okay. So, really important to communicate and get this communication built up with your crew. What we also want to do is, when we get no pressure, we're going to steer the boat back up towards the wind. And rather than use a rudder, which is the brake, the rudder on a 2000 huge, and in using it slows the boat down, we can simply, as helms, just lean our torso in slightly, and that will be enough to steer the boat without using rudder. If we need to go away from the wind, we can simply lean back, and the boat will steer away from wind. Again, not using the rudder, keeping the boat speed on, and making the best course as fast as possible to the leeward mark. So, it's all about communication. And this is soak it mode we're going to use in winds below 10 knots as a rough rule of thumb. So when the wind's above 10 knots, so 11, say up to 16, maybe 17 knots, we're going to use the intermediate mode. And you'll notice that the boat is pointing further away from the leeward mark. The benefit of this is the boat will travel faster and sail at a higher velocity. The crew is going to be positioned in the middle of the boat, either side of a centreboard, and the helm is going to sit to windward. And what we're trying to do is sail the boat in that position with the boat flat. So crew's in the middle, helm sat midships in the middle of the boat. If we get a gust of wind and the boat heels over, we're simply going to bear away, steer the boat downwind until the boat is level, and then we're going to sail on that course. If the boat comes on top of me, I'm going to steer the boat towards the wind, all in order to keep the boat flat. That's the number one thing with the intermediate mode. Whenever we get an opportunity to dial down or sail lower, we're going to use it, and when we run out of wind or pressure, we're going to then come back up. So we're travelling in a very much an S shape downwind, keeping the boat flat. Okay, that's the intermediate mode. Moving on, when it's 17 knots and above, so up to about 25 knots and beyond, we're going to use the full-on send it mode, and this is where the crew and the helm are going to be sat on the windward side. Again here we're going to keep the boat flat, but we're both on the windward side, and we're going to helm the boat, or I'm going to helm the boat as a driver, keeping the boat flat throughout. So again, if it heels over, I'm going to bear away. If the boat comes on top of me, I'm going to steer the boat towards the wind. all the time keeping the boat flat. Because we're always trying to get closer to this leeward mark, because if we do that, we're sailing a shorter course and we're going to get there faster, hopefully, than everybody else. So those are your 3 modes. So below 10 knots, you're going to use the soak it mode, crew and helm opposite sides. Lots of communication on what's happening with spinnaker, remember. When it's a little bit windier, so force 3, so 10 knots and above, or 11 knots, sorry, and above, we're then going to have the crew in the middle, helm's going to sit to windward. And then when it's windy, so force 5 and above, both crew and helm on the windward side, again keeping the boat flat, and that's called send it mode. Okay. So just to recap, the 3 modes: soak it, intermediate, and send it. Soak it 0 to 10, intermediate 11 to 16 knots, and send it 17 knots and above. Now these are values that I've got as close as I can, but this might not be exact for each and every one of you, okay? This is what sort of like works for myself and Katie. However, if you're a little bit heavier, say 150, 160 kilos, then you might have to stay in soak it mode a little bit longer than I might, and that's just that's just sailing. We're all weigh different weights, so we have to sort of like adjust it for our needs. And the best way of doing this is to get out in the boat, practicing and seeing what works for you. Okay, and there's no experience other than like going sailing and going racing and finding out about it. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to get it wrong in order to get it right. But once you've got it right, you'll then benefit from it in the future. So those are our 3 modes of downwind sailing. Thank you.